Then I went again.
Well, he said that,
Spiritual dimension.
How precious and how
I'm important to go.
we have a family.
Everyone else was astonishment.
Rabbi Baruch Zaitchik is a prominent rabbi and has held a pulpit in the United States, Canada, South Africa, and Australia.
While I was rabbi in South Africa, I was quite friendly with many of the families, Chabad families that time, some of them who just came, but there was one family who was actually a Chabad family, and he was a businessman, and I was quite friendly with him. And one day he says to me, he says that my wife, he says, is not feeling well. And I said, what's the matter? Is it something serious? He says she's being checked by the doctors. And he was then about 30. His wife was in his late 20s. They had 4 children. And I called him up a few days later, and he said to me, it's no good. The doctors, he says, think that she's very, very ill. She doesn't have too much time left, although he says, I haven't said anything. I asked the doctors, because he was quite a wealthy businessman, should I bring in doctors from overseas to see her or take her overseas? And they said, by all means, you can do that, but I don't think they will have any different approach than... So my first question was, I said, did you write to the Rebbe? So Chassid, I said, did you write to the Rebbe? He says, yes, I've already called, all right, because that time there was no email, and so the writing would have taken, I've called, and I've given all the information, and so on. And I'm waiting to hear from the Rebbe on it. They did a week later, or 10 days later, 2 specialists came in. One was actually from Houston, Texas, and the other one was from New York area. They were there for a couple of days. They were checking and so on and so forth. The results were pretty much the same. The answer was, there isn't much that can be done. And in the meantime, we didn't hear from the Rebbe anything yet. So I said to him, my friend, tell me, is what's happened? You told me you spoke. He says, I spoke, and since then I've written to the Rebbe. No answer yet. This went on for about a month and a half. At that time, I decided to call Rav Ushpol, who was a Rosh Yeshiva and was very close to the Rebbe. He was Rosh Yeshiva in Chabad, very close to the Rebbe. And as I said, my family knew him, and I knew him very well. And I said to Rav Ushpol, I said, this is the story. And I said, there's no one now from the doctors who can do anything. He has written and sent a message to the Rebbe. We didn't receive an answer. I know that you are very close to the Rebbe. Go into the Rebbe, at least let's see what the Rebbe has to say on it. He was like surprised, because he says, you, Baruch, are asking? Snagdim don't it? I said, look, I'm doing it for him. He's a Chabad member, and he what's the name? And I said, the bracha wouldn't hurt from anybody as far as that. I said, especially from the Rebbe. He said, okay. He said, I'll get back to you. This was in the beginning of the week. It was either Sunday or Monday and so on. And at that time, a call was not as easy as today was. But by the end of the week, he called me back, Rav Ushpol. He says, I was at the Rebbe, and you can give him over a message that she will have a refuah shleima. I called him up. He was at the hospital, so I went over to the hospital, Johannesburg General, and as I came in, he was just coming out of her room. And I said to him, what's happening? He said, she took a turn for the worse. And he says, the doctors just checked her out, and they don't think that she will even last a week. I said, is she conscious? Yeah, he said, she's still conscious, but very weak and very, what's the name? I said, look, I can only give you over the message. And this is the message that I give you. I just spoke to Rav Ushpol before. Rav Ushpol was by the Rebbe. And in the words of Rav Ushpol was that the Rebbe hat gesagt, he said it to me in Yiddish, the Rebbe hat gesagt, dass wird haben a refuah shlema. And mentioned the name. His face lit up. And he said, oh, he says, do you mind? He says, he was like very upset. He says, do you mind going in and speaking to her? And by the way, tell her what the Rebbe said as well. And hopefully that will, I did. I went in. Nurse was there. Nurse said, please don't stay too long because it'll tire her out. And I said to her, look, I said, I just spoke to Rav Ushpol, etc., and so on, and told her the same thing. And she said, she didn't respond too much to me. And I said, do you understand what I'm saying to you? I said, just nod with your head. And she nodded with her head and so on. This was a Thursday. It was actually Thursday towards the evening. By Monday, she made an amazing recovery. 2 weeks later, she was out of the hospital. She's alive today still.